Bannerlord's massive update is adding in stealth, the ability to parlay, and extra modding tools. Here's everything that's going to be coming in June of this year. Blade II Bannerlords just dropped one of the most detailed developer updates that we've seen since launch. And it's not just patch notes, this is for the base game. We're talking about stealth mechanics, parlay, diplomacy, character imports, and even modding tools that will change the title as we know it. So what's the real deal here? You know how we just got that announcement for the first expansion for Blade? Yeah, War Sales. I'm not even talking about that within this video. No, this is even more relevant to the everyman player in Blade, because this is a roadmap for what's coming in the base game completely for free. It's going to be at the same or similar time to the War Sales expansion, but there's a lot more than you'd initially think. Not to mention a peek behind the curtain of future DLCs and expansions, or even ones that have been cancelled. First off, let's talk about that stealth system. This actually came from their now cancelled story DLC that was, well, being initially made. That's being folded directly into the base game for Bannerlord itself. This means dungeon infiltrations, sneaking through enemy hideouts, silent takedowns, and sound-based AI detection. Yes, even hiding bodies in the shadows and hoping that the enemy guards don't catch you. But this all seems like quite a lot, so let's break it down. War Sales, this new expansion, is not the only thing that they're working on at this point in time. In fact, multiple DLCs have been in development. Alongside their naval combat, Taleworlds were hoping to bring in a story mode, at least of sorts. Even more so than what we already have. I mean, Blade II Bannerlords' actual storyline really consists of finding pieces of a goddamn banner. But they were hoping to bring this in with cinematics, quest lines, and even more of a linear approach to gameplay for certain sections if the player chose. Even random events within the game that just happen as you're exploring. However, said in a quote, "While this was an interesting new approach, it ultimately didn't meet the quality that we aimed for. Rather than talking about and releasing something that we weren't happy with, we made the tough decision to cancel its launch." This was the story DLC that no longer exists. They also mentioned that this is the reason that communication has been a little bit non-existent in the last couple of years. And I mean, it really does seem like they had that heads down approach to development. Not particularly wanting to tease or promise anything that wasn't confirmed or at least in the pipeline. And whilst, yes, it is sad that we're not going to be getting this storyline DLC anymore, some of those features are being freely ported over to the main game. So we're all going to get most of it anyway. All that hard work, we're now just getting added to Blade. So I guess in some ways it's a little bit of a win for the player base. This involves the introduction of a robust stealth system that will allow you to infiltrate dungeons and hideouts, rescue prisoners, and dispatch enemies without ever raising alarms. I mean, you can actually, break in and rescue prisoners at this point in time, but it's more of a, let's say, a forceful entrance. Guards will now have enemy AI that can detect sound and motion. I don't know how close we're going to be getting to something like an Assassin's Creed, but I doubt it's going to go that far. But guards now can become alerted by your actions through progressive levels of cautiousness. To succeed, you're going to need to not only carefully consider your position and movements, but also your environment, utilizing the elevation, darkness of night, and natural cover to achieve your goals covertly. Whilst these may have been enough in some cases, you'll find that other stealth tactics like distractions or concealing corpses just as useful. Yes, now within Blade, you're going to be able to throw a pebble into a wall to try and distract a guard as a little question mark comes over their head. Honing your effectiveness will further be possible through gear, much like having, Inner Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, wearing quieter or darker gear is going to give you better advantages in these situations, and upping your roguery skill, something that isn't really all that useful within the game at this point in time, but will become much more useful through this update. So this feels pretty far from what Bannerlord has been in the past, but I kind of love the idea. It's one of the main complaints of how similar and safe that Blade 2 has been in comparison with the first one. But this is definitely not going to be that. Stealth mechanics and naval warfare coming in all at once, it genuinely does feel like the game is going to be branching out into a much more impressive and risky direction. Something that I am all here for. We can see, some pictures that come with some of these stealth mechanics, and sure, they are very limited at this point in time, but there is the opportunity to do stealth kills we can see a little sign above, or an arrow above the guy's head. I'm assuming this is going to be integrated with the guard's awareness. Whether it turns orange or red, maybe it fills up, whether they can hear you or not is going to be there. And also we can see how they are wearing some stealthier clothes, which are going to be important for not being spotted. Going into hideouts no longer with a load of troops, now you might be able to do it on your own. But it doesn't stop there. No. There's more to this update. I did mention some of the extra bits like the random events, and we can see an example of one of them here. The quiet life. As you pass through the lands, you see several of your Valangian sergeants casting an envious eye on the farmers of the field. They're tired of wandering from place to place. They say and hope to put down their roots somewhere and start a family. Their contract for enlistment is not up yet, but it occurs to you if they settled in your estates, it would be a boon to the local militia. And you can grant them their wish and encourage them to purchase land near Sargot, give them money to purchase land near your fief, as long as they take charge of training the local militia, and tell them they can go, but only if they forfeit back pay as compensation for losing them or just refuse permission. I love this. This is going to be awesome. You can actually bolster your economy by bringing in troops. And do you remember when Rome Total War had a similar thing where you could get peasants and then disband them within your lands and the population of nearby towns would grow? This is probably going to be the closest thing that we're going to be getting in Bannerlord. If you want to have a bigger population in your towns, you want to be able to, recruit the militia so you can get better troops when you go in to recruit those towns. You can send your high-level lads to go and start building and settling in these areas, bolstering the militia, bolstering the economy, and I cannot wait to see what other random events we get. Alongside all of this, they're also adding in the ability to parlay, a way to talk to enemies from a distance instead of getting your head cut off. When you go to a castle or a city, you'll be able to open a dialogue before just charging in. At the moment, we can either sneak past the guards or we can just besiege this city. But now it's going to open the option for negotiations and roleplay. Honestly, from the screenshot we see, there's no way this wasn't inspired by Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That's the vibes I'm getting shouting over these castle walls. But that's just the start. We're also having some other additions coming in, like slingshots. Yeah, we're getting a new weapon. They've announced that they're rolling out several AI improvements, enhancing melee weapon use, improved pathfinding, reducing zigzagging for mounted AI. The ranged AI is also going to be more accurate against moving targets and firing faster by avoiding friendly troops. They're also addressing siege AI issues, ensuring archers with specific orders don't get too close to enemies. This is going to have some huge improvements on the gameplay. AI has been such a plague for Mount and Blade, and I'm so glad that it's getting some proper addressing. Now, it doesn't end there with the new weapons and arms and armor. We're also going to be getting some community-made stuff. To support modders, Taleworlds within the base game is enabling you to actually attack whilst crouched. Well, what does that mean? Well, this is actually much bigger than you'd think. You see, in the game at the moment, you can actually crouch within the game, but you can't do any sort of, attacking movements or even firing crossbows and archers like that. But now you're able to. It's going to be great for mods with muskets and guns. I mean, think of the Napoleonic Wars stuff. And in fact, I think this is directly for like the mounted muskets of Bannerlord. Being able to do ranked fire, having a first rank crouch, a second hand behind them, and be able to fire in that way. They're opening up the AI attack and weapon selection processes for making mission atmosphere moddables. They're also adding in audio modding support for Fmod banks and events, meaning that that's going to allow campaign time customization. Now, Fmod banks, if anyone doesn't know, Fmod is basically the software program that is used for dynamic sounds. So when you go into a battle, the music changes. For when you go into just the overworld, the music changes. When things happen, just sounds come in and come out depending on the dynamic movements of other characters and NPCs on who you're talking to in the game. But now this is going to be moddable, meaning that custom music and things can be dynamic as well. They're also developing an XML editor to eliminate the need for manual XML files editing for items, heroes, faction settlements, and much more. And of course, there's going to be so much more processing in terms of manual editing for modders. This is going to be huge for more detailed and more in-depth mods, creating new storylines, cinematics. You're going to be able to edit these random events, the dynamic weathers, and all of that stuff. And honestly, this update feels like Taleworlds is finally hitting their stride. They're listening to the community, adding in character import, export tools, deeper fief management, and even responding to all the modders. And hopefully means that Bannerlord is going to feel more alive than it ever has. Plus things like, you know, spear bracing improvements, AI path fixing, slings being added in as well is all beautiful. This is all coming alongside the War Cells expansion, which will of course bring in the naval battles, but if you haven't checked it already, go and look at my last video where I talk through that in great detail. But what do you think of the stealth mechanics? Too immersive? Not immersive enough? Let me know down in the comments, and hit subscribe for more grounded coverage of Bannerlord, Kingdom Come 2, Total War, and the best modding scenes within strategy gaming. But until then, I will see you in the next one.